And I so appreciate you being here today. It's the rebirth, the resurrection, the new birth of Temple Hayes podcast, On Fire for Life. And I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to be on fire for life. And one of the reasons that I wanted to call that show just that, being on fire for life, is that I've had the good pleasure of meeting so many people in my life that they've gone through major life changes. They survived COVID. They've had marriage changes. They've had spirit wanting them to do something they didn't want to do. They've had spiritual relocations and hardships and all those kind of things. And the people that I tend to gravitate towards are people that, regardless of what they've endured, what they've walked through, what has happened around them, on the other side of that, they come out more alive, more dynamic, more fantastic than ever. So, when my executive producer, Andrea Dudley, and I were looking at now who's the person we need to start with, we knew right away, no doubt about it, we needed to start out with the one and only Mary Madeires.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I admire you so much. I remember back in the day when I was becoming more and more, no, let me say this different. We don't become more and more intuitive. We allow ourselves to be more intuitive. I heard you correcting me even, even as I was saying it. You and those angels, you got like a van load. And so we allow ourselves, and it takes tremendous courage. Um, Mary, the first time you're with a client, it did for me, speaking for myself, for me to go, I've heard your story, I hear what you're saying, but what I'm getting is blah, 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 and fully trust to go with that. And I know the courage it took for me to do that. And I look at your life and the courage and the bravery and the thousands, tens of thousands of lives you've transformed for your willingness to say yes, to listen to the divine. And it's just blow away stuff. So tell our listening audience who you are and a little bit about your path and how you are where you are today.
Okay.
And you can have as much time as you want.
Well, this is so fun. I just love being with you, Temple, really. So the courage, by the way, going back to that courage aspect, it comes from divine. And I'm sure you feel that too. I mean, if I were to think humanly about, oh, I have to be courageous, I'd never get these things done. I'd never be doing what I do. But I just have this really strong relationship with divine, with the all that isness, with source, universe, however we want to describe that. God is what I grew up with. And I just know it's this surrender to it. And then it's the surrender itself that opens up this ability for me to just hear. And I hear blocks of thoughts that are not my own when I'm working in the Akashic records. Clearly, just not my own. And so when it began to happen, I have to say I did. It's such a big thing that I was like, who, little old me? I get to do this. And if anything, it was that. And some people would call that doubt. It wasn't so much doubt, but it was more like, I'm a little person over here and I get to do, and I just kept hearing in prayer time, but Mary, we are the same. We are the same. We are all the same. There's no up here and out there. So anyway, that's what I want to say about courage. I mean, the way I began was I was not in this arena very much. Well, I wasn't on paper in this arena, but I was operating that way my whole life. And so I worked in television for years, and on East and West Coast, working for the networks. And there was always something that I felt I did not resonate with around that work. I did really well, won awards, did the stuff that everybody does. And it was fun. I have to say, it was really fun. And when you're in an area like that, it can be, especially that in television, it can be so easy to just get pulled further and further into it because it's perceived success, good money. It can get better and better and better. And yet, it wasn't that I didn't like it. I wasn't so aware then. I wasn't aware that there was something else for me yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then things changed in the industry. I was working on soap operas, and a lot of them were going off the air. And so just because they were changing, and I remembered I came out of my last soap opera, General Hospital, and when I came out of that, I was like, well, I had been in television my whole life. What am I going to do now? And I floated about. I was always connected with metaphysical topics, the Eckhart Tolles and Abraham Hickses and everyone,
Mm-hmm.
unity. And I was at a metaphysical bookstore one day. No, the first thing was I had a psychic reading, a usual one, with a woman out here in California that we would go to. And she saw this being over my shoulder, and like a genie-like being. And she said, he says he guards your Akashic records. And I asked her, what are those? And she said, I don't know, but that's what he says he does. And so,
Wow.
I went home and looked up the Akashic records, and it wasn't like something hitting me over the head. I just went, wow, it was almost a very calm knowing. Like I went, yeah, yep, that makes sense. I think I know. Yeah. And then I didn't pay attention to it. How often do we all do this in our lives? Right.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And so I went back, banging on the doors of television, back to that. And then what I did was, I was in a metaphysical bookstore out here in California, the Bodhi Tree. A lot of people in LA know this store. And I was by myself in a back room, and there was this book teetering off the shelf above me, really like just sticking out enough that it called my attention to it. And I looked up. The title was How to Read Your Akashic Records.
Oh,
So
stop.
I know, right? So I pulled it down, and I just out loud. I mean,
Wild.
it was something nobody that I was alone in that room, because out loud I went, okay, all right, I'm getting it, and I'm going to just sort of go through this. Well, it was written by Linda Howe, who I wound up studying with, and she's now written, I think, 6 books on the Akashic records through Hay House. And the book, I think I blinked and I had gone through the whole book, and I'd already opened my records in the book and was hearing downloads and beautiful, like definitely not coming from 3D me, I'll say, but from something else, obviously the higher conscious part of myself, because I believe that is what that is. It's all the same. Mm-hmm. So I just would write down what I was getting, and then I would share it first with my wife, Christine, because I was just like, is this my imagination or what? She'd be like, are you crazy? You don't even speak this way. There's something going on here. And so I stuck with it. I just stayed with it. But even then, I didn't jump into studying it. And a very dear friend of mine, for my birthday, put enough cash in a card for me to begin studying at the Center for Akashic Studies out of Chicago, because those who were close to me were saying to me, you've got to keep going with this. Mm-hmm. And so, but I had my doubts. My doubts were my own, what they were coming from, my own subconscious patterns and past life stuff that I, by studying the records, worked through. And so now I'm a living example of, when you work through all of that and come to a fuller knowing of yourself and why you're here, everything just gets easier and fun, and life is beautiful, because it really is beautiful. So that's how I got to where I am now. And it's just been an amazing journey. Like, I watch, when I'm in people's records, the divine moves on the spoken word. As we know, sacred tomes, how come you can pick up a sacred book and there's an activation, you can feel something, yet it might have been written a gazillion years ago? It's because the divine moves on the spoken word. I'm certain of that now. And so when we're working in somebody's records, when I'm in the records with someone, the divine is speaking, or rather, as that person might, especially the client is speaking, the divine is downloading blocks of thought for me, and it just takes off, and expansion happens, and amazing things. It's like magic. It is magic. Feels like it.
The quote, and for our listening audience, look this up before you quote me, but it's like Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it goes something like, "What lies before us and what is behind us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." And I feel that that's kind of like an undertone of what you're saying and what we're wanting other people to hear and witness and have the courage for is you already had the package in you, if you will. You had the ability within you. You had this in you. And when it started coming your way, it is kind of like, right, Michelangelo, like chipping away what doesn't belong so David could rebuild. And so because you had, it was yours to do. And I just think that it's such a powerful message to trust, moving from a human-made world of TV, and there's not a thing wrong with that, and winning 3 Emmys. I mean, there's not a, it's not an either or. It really is a both and.
Yes.
But you really, when you look at it metaphysically, because here's where I go. Here you are taking scripts, looking at them, and then producing, directing, and everything before you. You're still doing the same thing.
That's right.
You're doing it with a soul. You're taking a soul like mine, and I have had the good pleasure, and you will be my Akashic record person throughout my life. And I have come to you a few times. Sometimes we're more fun than others. Mary Madeires is the first person that told me, your soul records are telling me that you are moving to Santa Barbara, California. And I'm going, what? No, you know what? But that being said, you are still doing television in a way of what is being viewed by a human being as the story of their own narrative. Right?
I love that. I love that.
This is just downloading to me that it's still more of the same, but you're taking the soul script. And often when I'm teaching or when I'm consulting people, I will say, I need to watch myself because there's my soul guiding me and like the captain of my ship. And then there's the personality going, why do we need to do that for? We already know enough.
Right.
Why do we need that? Why does people need to read our 14-page bio that just says how long we've lived? Why do we need the person? I don't really want to, that's inconvenient. You know, I don't really want to go to one more course and learn one more thing because, you know, when do we stop learning? The personality does this, and the soul is going, this is just a speck in the light. This is just you are a dot. And I go, oh, okay. But I love the work you do. You are a great producer, director of supporting someone to go deeper into their soul journey.
Well, you know, interesting. So many things I've learned from my own work in my own records when I was studying about the Akashic records, because all we did was open our own records over and over and over. One of Linda's books is called Healing Wounds Through the Akashic Records. So we were doing that. And I'm so grateful that we were doing that. One of the things that I started to notice is that when we have, and this has happened with many of my clients, I don't know about you yet. I'd have to remember. I don't always remember people's readings, by the way.
Right.
But when we have past careers and then we come into another one. What the records, when we look at our lives through the lens of the Akashic records, of our own Akashic records, we discover that we've accumulated assets and opportunities. I like to call them assets from every single thing we've done. Even if, you hear
Totally.
people say sometimes, oh, well, that was my first life. I was a plumber and now I'm a lawyer, whatever. Well, the lawyer is probably going to use plumbing to some degree, and some aspect of plumbing will come in. And so you're kind of dancing around the same idea. This, as a director, what do I know how to do? I know how to have a peripheral, because I used to do live television. So I'd have to sort of be able to see everything all at once without zeroing in on one tiny thing. Otherwise, the show would just tank, or something would happen. So there's that. And the other interesting thing is that when I was beginning to open my own records over and over and over, I asked my records one day. I would sit at my computer and I would write it out in here. And I asked, is this my imagination or is this real? That's how I worded it. And my record, the answer I heard was, I thought it was going to be, yes, this is real. No, the answer I got was, of course it's your imagination, Mary, because that's the greatest aspect of you that we can use to bring through what people are needing to hear about themselves. And so, of course, I mean, my imagination is like wacko. Everybody knows this about me. I will make inanimate objects speak. I mean, I've done this my whole life. But what I also had from the very beginning was, when I was very little, I remembered sitting in church. I grew up Catholic, and I like to say kind of like, let that go in a short amount of time. I let certain aspects of it go. But the one thing that I always remember was loving church and just the feeling of church. And I remembered knowing that there was a God, being really little and knowing. No one could have talked me out of it. A God that says you're sinners. I remember being little going, what? Why would God make us in the image of God if that's what is happening?
Right.
And then make broken people like that. Just as a kid, I think most children really understand way more than we do as adults. And so I understood that really at a young age. So when I discovered the Akashic records, or I was guided to them, which was written in my own records, by the way. So my soul's journey involves working in the Akashic records. And I know that now because it flows so easily. And they said that it is going to be so easy, you'll question it. And that's another beautiful thing that we should be reminded about, is when we're following or tap into actions and choices in our lives that are reflective of why we're here, they go so easly that it's just that we question it.
Right.
Right. And then we
Right.
need people to come along and go, what's wrong? And how many people could say there's nothing wrong? The records say that all the time. There's nothing wrong. Everything is actually really all okay all the time. But that's not the world we live in, is it? And so divine reminds us it's really okay. And so I grew up knowing that, but my little mind didn't know what that meant until I kind of bopped through life, falling on my face as we all do, making mistakes, whatever, living life. And then beautifully it opened up. Like, it was almost like, this is the time now, because now I can bring so many of my experiences, I can bring right to record readings when I'm working with people, because it makes me more relatable. When people hear, oh, you did that, or you had that experience, I'm like, yes, as we all do. And so when we need to take the judgment out of it all. But anyway, everything does have, they become assets of everything we've done. And that is so much fun to discover when we're working inside our records. It's the best part of it. Like, oh, you mean when I bullied another kid when I was 8 years old, that's going to have value right now? Yep. Let's look at it. When we look through the lens of the records, we come to see it doesn't validate something bad that we did, but it shows us something else about it that then becomes it can transform itself into an asset. And that is so exciting. It really is. Oh, and one other thing I have to say is, when you mentioned earlier that I was the one that in your reading that your record showed you moving, I can already hear all of your Florida colleagues going, "It's her fault."
Well, as we've laughed, because we've been friends for many, many years, and we laughed initially because you go, "You're blaming me," and now you can say you're complimenting me,
Yes.
because I am, because that I was so settled, so comfortable. That that came at me like the night I was drinking and ran into the transferred truck on the wrong side of the highway going 85 miles an hour. I mean, it was just that. And what I love about your approach, there are people that we know, we've talked about this, that they go to a workshop and they practice doing something for a weekend, and then they get involved in being advisors to people's lives. And
Mm,
and people can do a lot of harm. They
yes.
can project, oh, something's going to happen to you one day and you're going to be very sick. And you can't ever take those kind of things out of your head. But what I admire so much about your approach is that you are so humble, and seeds that you plant, and not arrogant. And it's very clear it's coming from another realm, not your, well, this is who I am and I'm
No.
important and I know what I'm talking about and I have a business card, to prove it. You're very flowing with the space of that. And yeah, she'll always be my number one. That's
Thank
not
you, Temple.
that's not going to change,
Mm,
because I went, no way, I'm not doing that. No. And you go, well, what about this? Have you thought about that? And you just kept going with it. My curiosity, though, is, for me, I have found many times in life, as a, just let's just say, as a practitioner of life,
mm.
that when something's going on with me, or it has been going on with me, or it's going to be going on with me, somebody will call me for an appointment and want to spend time with me as their consultant, advisor, friend, or whatever. And lo and behold, I'm like, oh my gosh, the practitioner in me is having to recognize that aspect of me within them. Does that come into play? Because soul work is so much more vast than, day to day advising and intuitive healing. Does that ever come into play, that you're seeing your life through the window of another person's soul? Or
Well,
is it important to be totally separate from
it
that?
is important to be separate,
Okay.
and this it's a subtle separation, because the other thing that's very important about the Akashic records is that when we're in the records, we're dialoguing. Like when we're in your records, when you say, she's the reason I moved, and I would say to you, no, you're the reason, because when we're in your records, your soul's light energies that reflect everything about you, you're talking with yourself. And it sounds so odd, but I'll say to people a lot of times, because they'll say, oh, Mary, you're so this and that. And I'll go, well, you are, because you've
Right.
just been dialoguing with yourself. Edgar Casey, in his book on the Akashic records, because he was accessing the records, um, which I didn't realize until later on. And I had been following him. I had no idea he was in the Akashic realm. But
Wow.
but he basically says about lifetime after lifetime that we just keep meeting up with ourselves, which I love. We just keep meeting ourselves over and over and over again. And so when we're in our records, whether we're opening our own records, and anybody can, or we're going through a practitioner like myself, we're dialoguing with the divine aspect of ourselves. And so that should, I mean, when I learned that, it made me feel better. I felt like, oh, it's not something outside it's not this process that if you follow step 1 through 5, you'll have everything you want in life. It's more like we're digging in and hearing from our own selves on another very high vibrational level. It's very powerful. So do I expand? Absolutely. Every time I'm in anybody's records, when I close their records and kind of come back into my own ego place, in a healthy ego place, I'll say, then I'll be reflective and I'll feel better. I feel calmer. I feel like I've expanded, but because the divine light is activating through the reading. It's coming through my mind, my imagination, as they say, and all my heart, because I love people and I love life. I always have. When I was young, my brothers used to make fun of me for my family made fun of me for being too nice. Can you imagine somebody kind of like what?
Making fun of you for
Yeah, but
being
it
too nice.
affected me. It really affected me. I felt like I was the odd one out. Like I didn't feel like I fit in. And even in some relationships, like somebody once said, "You're too romantic." What? Like now I say what? But you know, when we're younger, it affects us. So anyway, I went off on that.
It does. It does affect us.
Yeah,
And
but I do
I
expand.
used to get that too, by the way. I don't know
Really?
about the kind part, but I would always get you're too much. You're too
Wow.
loud. You're too much. And we're looking at that right now with my little goddaughter Miracle. That's the way it's becoming for her in the school system that she's in.
Oh,
She's
no.
not too much. The school she's in is not enough for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, I mean, my sixth grade teacher told my parents I was never going to amount to anything because I talked too much. I mean, I remember the ride home. I can almost pull that in my physiological self. Mrs. Brown telling me that, and I'm in the back seat, and my parents we're so embarrassed, and this is so insulting, and how could this be, and when can you behave, and when can you not? Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is, I was just acting out because I needed some help of what was going on and what I was surviving, behind closed doors. But yeah, we get these kind of tapes and conditions, and that's what I love about the work you do, because you're going into the records,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it removes the barriers of psychology, culture, environment,
Totally.
and you just open up that those drapes, and you go, but here's the way it really is. And the moment you say what you do and how you do, I feel, and I'm saying this for the people that are going to be contacting you for a reading. Um, you can feel like an immensity of energy coming over your body, because you know that what you're hearing is very true, because you recognize yourself. It's like meeting a friend, a new acquaintance at a gathering or a party or something, and you feel this huge, like, we're a vibrational match.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
Mm-hmm.
that's the way a client of yours feels when they are getting the reading, because
Well, yes,
it's so powerful.
and because they're meeting themselves, they're
Yes.
meeting that purest. We come in, we come in whatever lifetime it is, as whole. The records have shown me this in image, like this whole ball of light, right? We just come in that way, no matter what. We come in that way, and so we think, and we have been in third dimension. Well, I say 3D, but the planet doesn't help us that much with, not the planet, some people on the planet, with talking us out of that, or saying, "You're broken, let me help, let me fix you." And that's why I like, the records are never about that. It's never about fixing anyone. You get to meet yourself and you will feel good. So that's like what you're saying. That's how it is with me. When I open my records, I just feel like, I feel like I'm home, and I feel held in this sacred space. And then to know that that sacred space is me, it's my being, it's my light, my own inner light. That is really pretty trippy cool, I think.
Pretty trippy cool. No doubt, right? No doubt.
It is.
Let's take a moment and tell people how to find you, your website,
Mm-hmm.
how to connect with you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So my website is spirittherapybymary.com.
Okay.
Kind of got that title in my own records,
Spirit
because it kind of feels like
Spirit
spirit
Therapy
therapy.
by Mary. Spirit Therapy by Mary. I
MyMary.com.
love that
Yeah.
.com.
I wanted just I wanted it without the Mary, and it was taken. So I was like, I heard just add Mary. And then my email is a divine realm at gmail.com.
Okay.
So a divine realm at gmail.com. And that's how you reach me. What else? For now, I'm writing a book because when I would be opening my own records and I'd be dealing with my own issues or blockages or challenges, the records would start to impart what I needed to hear and then expand, similar to Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God. All of a sudden, it just these downloads of humanity and life on the planet and amazing stuff was coming through. And so I kept going with it throughout the years. And then I heard through my own records, your records show you writing. Actually, they named like 3 books. And so this first one is that it's my own experience when this would happen. So excerpts from my own readings that would impart something that we all need to hear. I mean, even COVID, during COVID, I was in the records asking about COVID. So that I'm following that. So I am, I want to say close to finishing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, Miss Author, how did it feel when it wasn't being finished enough soon enough? Or did you ever go through that?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Well, it's an immense project. I mean, there's lots of
Mm-hmm.
people whose names we won't mention that, they're so known all over the world and they're so famous, but they use ghostwriters. But when you do your own work, and again, that's not to wrong someone, but when it's you doing it and you feeling the passion around it, like growing a child, it, we get, if you will, we get somewhat torn because we want to we
Mm-hmm.
want to rush the process, but yet you can't, so
No,
so
can't
it's
rush it.
it's allowing. And with every
Yeah.
delay, I was telling someone today how excited I was to be launching this show again because Andrea and we were together 10 years and I was doing the show for about 14. And the me of the past, I heard last March that Unity Worldwide Headquarters had shut down Unity Online, and that was it. And they weren't moving forward. Well, the me of the past, and I like to use that, the me before resurrection, the me
Mm-hmm.
before the brand new day would have done it this way. So the me of the past, I would have had a new show. I would have had a new name of the show. And I would have had the platform I was signing on board with and had a few offers. Um, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And every time I would go to do it, I'd get no. And Andrea will tell you, because she and our graphics designer, we picked 3, 4 times, so much so they didn't believe me anymore. I mean, I'm actually surprised that Andrea even showed up today because we were going to start this like 3 or 4 times. And it's not that I'm not I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a decision maker and I move forward. But I was getting in the way of the highway, so it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
language,
Right.
is it my way or the highway? And what I was going to call it isn't what I felt, and anything. And so the delay brought forth oh, this is what it is. This is how it is supposed to
Yeah.
be. And it took courage because I am an extrovert, but to call the show named after me, that's what Spirit said. This is what you're gonna do. So to your book, it's right on time, and
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to it because I know
I
you.
am. I am
Yeah.
too.
I know. Like people say, I'm looking forward to hearing you speak, and I go, so am I. I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm going to say. Who knows?
Right.
But I truly, in all seriousness, the kind of work that you're talking about is so needed now. Well, it's always been needed, but more than ever before, we need more than conceptual theories or cliches. It's all in divine order. Yes, it is. We are all one. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the core truth. But how do we relate to that? And that's where a book like yours, work like you do, work like I do, we're showing how that is true. We're showing how that
Mm-hmm.
unfolds. And that's especially for the younger generations, they want to be shown instead of told, right?
Mm-hmm. And the Akashic records, they bring eh, they bring spirituality into action. So, and that you've experienced that moving from
Mhm.
coast to coast. I mean, that's an action, and they're not, the records don't go like, you're doing this. That's not how it works.
Right.
It's interesting that the way that the Akashic records work in readings is that the Akashic light energies, keepers, they're not spirits, they're light energies. They literally will ask the client through me questions. And by the client answering their own questions, they get their answer. And a lot of times it does turn into and become actionable things
Mm.
that they can do. We've done businesses. I can open the records of a business, a location, pets, animals, I should say, um, because the idea is that everything that a soul has lived, said, experienced is etched in this quantum divine realm. Everything's there from the beginning of time. So when we open through prayer, I use a sacred prayer to open with the permission of the person, and a pet will give you permission. You just ask the pet or the animal, do you want me to open your Akashic records? It is amazing. They'll kind of turn away, or they'll just look down, and that's a no, or they'll just come to you or whatever, and that's a yes. And so it's bringing, this is what's exciting to me, it's bringing spirituality, which used to be up there and out there and very metaphoric, and it's bringing it into our lives in an actionable way, in actions and transformations. And that is why the name of my book is The Akashic Way,
Oh, wow.
because it's a way of looking and living our lives through the lens of our own Akashic records. And when we do that, it's just amazing what comes through. We just keep getting realigned with our soul's choice, why we came here. Because we all, as a soul, at least I believe, made a choice before incarnating each and every time. Not a specific choice, but an overarching choice, like I'm here for self-love, or, I'm here to contribute to the expansion of the planet in some way. It's those kinds of choices that the soul makes. And then everything we live literally leads us to that. It reflects that, I should say, in some way. And so when we look through that lens, we start to see, oh, so when I did that, oh, that makes this. Oh, yeah, this does feel better to me. Oh, I have always wanted to this or that. And the records just kind of shine your own light back to you, and you feel more of yourself,
Mhm.
which is why I think what you're saying earlier, like, people feel better when they've had a reading or been in their records. You can't not feel better because you're getting a dose of the divine aspect of yourself each and every time.
Yeah,
And you don't have to, like, read a book and you don't have to follow instructions to do it. You just need to surrender to it. It's so cool.
it is cool because a lot of times we're so programmed as humans that there's one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
That I
Yes.
was laughing as I was teaching at a recovery conference a couple of weeks ago. And I said, and what about this intermittent fasting? We as alcoholics, we're the ones that made that up. I mean, we were doing that 30 years ago. You didn't drink, you didn't eat that morning. You were still living off the night before, but now it's intermittent fasting. And and I get it, but it's hysterical. And but
Yeah.
so people are like, oh, now I gotta do intermittent fasting. Well, that may not be for you. that
Right.
that may be so off where you're supposed to be. And just because it worked for so and so, that is what's coming through your Facebook feed, may not work for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think it's so important, to have, you, an Akashic reader in one's life. And when I started in Unity at 19, we had someone come through that read the Akashic records.
Ah,
Yeah. So it's
nice.
in that space. It's like, because we're bombarded with this choice and that choice and this choice and that choice and this choice. And it's
Yes,
like, and we invest in so many things. I'll do
we do.
this, and well, I got to have this kind of sweater, and I've got to do this, and I got to do that, and this is the answer. Oh, go to this now. This is your new answer. But when you think about it, um, why wouldn't you listen to the answer that is in you? And some people, you just can't do that by yourself. Um, and sometimes we can, and sometimes we cannot. So if you are at a crossroads,
Yeah.
if you're going through changes, which means you're breathing and your heart's beating, if you're living in this world, you are going through some changes. It's
Yeah.
beautiful to me, it's an investment in myself, that rather than
Mm-hmm.
just picking this and picking that and picking this, picking that, I'm going to go somewhere, and I'm going to write a divine realm at gmail.com, and I'm going to go, I need a check-in, because I need to calm all this down, and for my real tapped answers, the answers that are already picked within me, to reveal themselves. It's life
That's what
altering.
happened.
It's life altering. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't say enough about it. And yes, Mary happens to be here. But if somebody was interviewing me and saying, what are some of the spiritual tools that you use, and who's in your boat, right? Who do you have in your boat? I would say, and I have someone that reads the Akashic records, because it's beyond the day to day. It gets you out of the muck and all the other things, and it brings you right into alignment with, no wonder that's been happening. No wonder this
Yeah.
repeated pattern goes over and over and over
Yes.
again, and I keep
Yes.
getting in relationship with people that are sweeter, and then it's like, no wonder that's
Mm-hmm.
happening. Whatever it is, it makes everything make perfect sense. So
That's was my experience, has been,
mhm,
and still is my experience, like ahas. And I love that you use the words no wonder, because
right.
that is what happens. I go, no wonder no wonder I always do this or always do that. Was it Bruce Lipton talks about, Dr. Bruce Lipton speaks of subconscious patterns, and how we now know, he always relates things to science. And he says, we now know that the subconscious runs 96 or 7% of our
Mm,
behavior from the
mhm,
background, and our conscious doesn't even know. And so we can actually, the records bring me to people's subconscious patterns all the time, um, because they're kind of like, our subconscious develops when we're like in our third trimester to like 7 years old. And it's just a recording device. It records everything around
mhm,
us, attitudes, how we're treated, you're too much, all of that. That gets recorded. And then as we, when we grow up, we start growing up, we start to, that runs from the background looking for more of itself. Let me find people that are going to say I'm too much. And then generally that is what will happen. And so I guess that's a little bit of the law of attraction in there. And
mhm,
so when we discover those, it's the no wonder comes up. Oh, no wonder this or that. And then what we do through the lens of the records, when we're in the records doing this, it transmutes those subconscious patterns. Once we know them, we're not going to get rid of them. They're part of who we are. But they're going to not be grabbing us from the background. They're going to come out, and then we can actually access and mine, M-I-N-E, the energy of those subconscious patterns. And then they come into the light of they come through the light that we are, and they become assets. It's amazing. And here's one for you. You were told too much speaking, right? Which you shared. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, you're too much. Your voice, speaking too much? Look what you're doing. You have a mastery in using your voice and speaking. What in an odd way, a gift that was, because somehow the energy of speaking too much, in quotes, is exactly what has you up and out front in working with people and healing people, and really working and helping people really see things that maybe they didn't see before. So congratulations on that. I think there's an example of something that we would look at and go, oh, let me get rid of that bad attitude. That doesn't condone it. No child should have that happen to them.
No.
That's not
but
okay.
every adversarial appearance in our lives and experience, if we allow it, we can get on fire for life, because it transcends us to a whole new way. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, how do you're so good at confrontation. I just don't get it. And I said, well, I had to recreate that. You don't get to be in sizable communities, or to be a person that is willing to speak a truth boldly and pretend like you're not ever going to get any confrontation. I mean, just get on social media. And I said, well, I changed the word to coming in front of, confront, come in front of. And I said, and if that doesn't help me, listen, I got all my skill sets from being raised in a dysfunctional family,
Right.
But it's true.
Right.
And so the energies that you go through, and sometimes these things become webs or closets or heaviness. And we keep repeating, talking about the law of attraction, we keep repeating, going through new relationships, new conditions. And yet when we have our records read, it's just, there's such a calm, and it deepens the commitment to yourself. It's too complex attempting to be like someone else.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? It is too complex. I love that, Temple.
Too complex.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good one. I also like your idea of the confrontation come in front of, because today, what the records have been saying, probably I think it's in my book somewhere, but this is sort of like, it's almost like a 911 call coming, not from divine, that divine would need help. It doesn't. But there is some kind of a calling that's happening right now on our planet for those of us to come out front, confrontation, I guess. And I equate it to, like, we've heard that Archangel Michael has a golden sword, and that golden sword can slice through stuff. If we've grown up with bullies, then we know that bully energy. And if we're familiar with bully energy, we're probably not going to be scared of it when we're adults. And so we can bring out our golden sword and step in front of people who are not doing good things and go, stop right now. This stops now. And I think it's okay to do that. It depends on how, where we're coming from. We can't have them as subconscious patterns, because then we'll be in victim energy. Once we have, that's why the records are so helpful, because then we can go, that's what it is. I'm not really that. Bruce Lipton says that those subconscious patterns, he says the good news is that they're not ours to begin with. That's right. When we're a little person and all this stuff is going on around us, it's not ours. But we happen to have this thing called subconscious that develops, and it's like a recording device. And so, it's the luck of the draw, I guess, but that's what we get. And so if we could just use those and for empowerment, and we can, in a but it has to be in a healthy, balanced way. And the records bring us into balance, into that divine center, always, 100% of the time. I've never had an experience with my own being in the records or anyone else where there isn't this clicking into balance. It's amazing, which this is probably true for you too, Temple, is it if not that I need proof that there's source God, but boy, if I don't ever know more and more that that's really what's going on and that's what's real, every single time I'm in the records, I'm knowing even in a greater way what's the source of things that makes all the beauty and the beauty of us. It's not being reminded. I'm filled with it. And so I come away going, whoa. I just get like, whoa, whoa.
No, absolutely. I was thinking about this the other night because before I go to sleep, I like to have like a nice meditative, free flowing time of quiet and
Mm-hmm.
stillness as we're preparing for the next day, as we close our eyes into the next day. I was thinking, a lot of times people say there's no such word as God, and there is no, greater power or whatever. And my thoughts to that is, I continue to breathe without being conscious of it. My heart still beats, and I don't have to keep reminding it to do so. Something's doing that, and
Yep.
as long as that's the case, I would never publicly doubt ever that there is a higher power or a divine being in any way. Because if it were up to me, I certainly wouldn't be on this show with you, and my parents would have buried me probably at about 22 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
there is purpose, and there's
Yes.
greater meaning. And now people are so concerned with being canceled or having someone cheat them out of something. You know what? I mean, my feeling is I don't want to cancel me. I don't want to cheat me. Because the truth of the matter is we're all going to be hurt again. We're going to get abandoned
Mm-hmm.
again. We're going to have somebody that's not comfortable with their own power try to chop us off for our own inner power or whatever
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's like, bring it on, baby, bring it on. You're
That's
going to have
right.
people make up stories about you. I've certainly had my share. And Mary, of some of those. I even taught some of my students what you could do to hurt somebody's reputation and then them turn around and use it. Life is like that. But
Wow.
if you don't cancel you, and in consciousness that you're representing as best to your own understanding the flow of life itself, you continue to be on fire for life. And by the way, I just want to take a moment and thank all of you that are tuning in and listening to me and Mary live out loud and allowing our hearts to share with you, and leave comments and questions. And though we're not actively tuning into some of them now, we will later, because we love the engagement and we love your participation. I just want to remind you that you can contact Mary by emailing her at the letter A, divine realm at gmail.com. We're actually going to
Mm-hmm.
have her here in Santa Barbara, Unity of Santa Barbara, on November the 19th. And she's going to share with many people about her journey. And I just applaud you so much for who you are and your ability to allow your life to be used in the way that you do.
Well, I can't thank you enough. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I, you're you're a shining example. I love the title of this
Yeah.
show. You are on fire all the time, and no matter what, you continue to be on fire. And what a shining example for people in you and what you do. So, I'll just say back at you because I wouldn't be here either if it wasn't for you. And the synergy that we have around the power of divine, the power of source, and the power of people. We have to remind each other more and more and more, and hopefully it grows exponentially, that we as individuals are extremely powerful beings just on our
Mhm.
own. Power in the light, that kind of power. Kindness does rule. Kindness is really important. And it's, we just have to, that's my thing. When I worked with actors, it was the same thing. I was beyond kind to them. I gave them room to be more of who they were, and then they would bring more of themselves to their scenes, and they would do better. I once had a petty tyrant boss, a woman, say to me, "You're too nice to the actors."
Oh,
Now I'm telling everyone this because I can,
yeah.
without naming names. And I said, "What?" And she's, "You're too nice to them. They don't deserve it."
Hmm.
Whoa. Whoa. So I came along to upset that apple cart because I did not stop being kind to them, to everyone in the
Hmm.
crew, everyone.
You
And,
turned what you were being criticized to into an asset,
yes,
and thank heavens that you listen. Well, because you move and live in life that way, and that's me too. I was saying the
yeah,
other day how a lot of times I get critiqued, and did back in the day when I used to travel with Career Track, Fred Pryor Resources. I don't know if you knew I did that, but I traveled all
mm-mm.
over doing workshops and programs, and that would be on my evaluation, and they would say, "Nobody can really be that happy. She's a fake."
Oh, wow. See, it's that same stuff.
Nobody could be that happy. And I really had to grow in that because I'd say, Temple Hayes, are you going to focus on the 200, positive critiques? Or are you going to focus on those that say, you can't be that happy? But I am that happy. And it doesn't mean that unhappy things don't happen. That's
That's
that's the
right.
part we're so into, especially now, divided language, that
Hmm.
we have totally forgotten about both. And the core of me is always happy because I am
Hmm.
alive. I woke up this morning. I am happy to share. I get thrilled, as you do, Mary, when one more person has turned their light on, when one more person has
Oh
gone
gosh.
through
Yep. One
sobriety,
person.
when one more person has left the relationship of hell, when one more
Yep.
person makes way for new things to happen, when one more person wakes up. I am so turned on by that. My colleagues and I would say so many times in ministry, because it's a tough calling. And so many times we'd say, "I'm kind of done. And the next week, but this would be back in the days when they'd actually send you a letter of
Oh,
appreciation, right? And I'd get a letter, "Oh, thank you so much for what you said the other day." And I'd go, "Okay, 5 more years. I'll do it for 5 more years."
yeah. 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 It totally just flips you back into knowing
Yep,
that, um, feeling wonderful about your own authenticity.
yep.
And, yeah, like, you're too happy?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Right. I got that a lot. I get that a lot. I
Wow.
still get that in 12-step arenas. But I struggled so much. I mean, I struggled, and hey, and I took everybody in my boat with me. Okay. All right. I didn't just struggle by myself. I took a whole group of people in the
Boatload.
struggle with me back when I drank those active 15 years. And I just was very clear when I wasn't drinking anymore that I wasn't going to struggle about not drinking. My struggle was drinking, not drinking.
Mhm.
And people find that too hard to believe, but that's not my issue. I'm not taking
Right.
that on because I know what's true, and that's what matters. And I think that's the
Well,
whole point of having your soul, your Akashic records, is that you learn to know what is true. And when you deepen your knowing of what is true, no one can ever take your path, your purpose, your light, your energy. It's not for sale. Nobody
that's
can take
absolutely
it
right.
away from you, right, Mary?
That's absolutely true. Nobody can.
Mhm.
That's right. That's why it's such, the word empowerment, self-empowerment, that does get thrown out a lot, but I mean, tossed around, but it is true. There's nothing. And I like to say too that no matter what challenges are going on, and as you said, there's plenty. it's a pretty chaotic time right now. But I like to say, well, have at me if you want, because I'm walking with divine here, and there's nothing more powerful than that. So, I mean, look at in the history of the world, there have been there have been people that have Gandhi took a bullet. I mean, there are people who have done things, and they just went okay, and they stood for peace, love, light, all of that, and no matter what hit them, or prison, they continued. Nothing could stop them. Why? Because they knew who they were.
Absolutely.
It's the most it's like there's nothing that's more empowering than that. Like, that's it. It really is that. And I'm here to say that Temple is that happy all the time to everybody out there.
I really
You
am.
are.
I really
Mhm.
am. And when I weep,
I
I
love that.
weep. And when I grieve, I grieve. And when I
Mhm.
miss my mom, I miss my mom. But the core of
Mhm.
me, I just really got that. The core of you is the core of you, and it is unwavering, and it is a lighthouse. And though rocky
Mhm.
things happen outside of you, you don't have to bring them in and invite them in to live with you. And that's
Yeah.
just the absolute truth. And I am just so touched, Mary, that you agreed to be our first guest of our new beginning with Temple Hayes podcast, On Fire for Life. You indeed talking about On Fire for Life. Look right there. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm very grateful. And I want to remind everybody it's adivinerealm@gmail.com. You can go on my website, templehays.com. And if you have ideas or thoughts, you can also get a free chapter of my book. We're here, and we do this work because we love seeing the work in you. We do this
Mhm.
work because we love seeing the work in you. And that is, one of the things that gives us the greatest joy. And Mary, say your website again is
Spirittherapybymary.com.
spirittherapybymary.com. Remember, if you're
Mhm.
tuning in now, live time, or if you're tuning in later, please ask us things and give us some comments. And
Mhm.
I'll get them to Mary too if she doesn't see them.
Yeah.
Because we love knowing that we're in this together. And that's what it's all about. I want to thank
Mhm.
Andrea Dudley, our executive producer. And Mary, many, many blessings to you in this amazing journey
You
we
too.
call life.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a gift.